Ever since I started making Skylanders content, I've only played one of the 6 games, SWAT Force. Not only because it was my childhood Skylanders game, but because I honestly didn't want to buy all the Skylanders games at the time. But recently, I was able to buy Skylanders Trap Team and got to experience a little bit of the game. And to be completely honest with you guys, I think that this game is on par with SWAT Force in a lot of areas and generally better in others. But the one place where I genuinely think that this game is utter trash is the elemental gates. The only way it should be is that I should have a character that matches the corresponding elemental gate. It should be that simple. But apparently, Toys for Bob said no and decided that they not only have to correspond to that same element, but they also have to be a trap master. Which raises the question of, why the hell does everyone else have a corresponding element if they cannot use the gates? I shouldn't have to shell out another $180 just to get access to a basic feature that's been part of the other Skylanders games. Why not tie a game mode to these trap masters like Vicarious Visions did for the SWAT Force, considering the fact that you need to also get traps that correspond with each element just to play as all the other villains you capture? What Activision employee managed to greeble their way into Toys for Bob to come up with this horse turd? But anyways, my unending anger for this aside, this just meant that I had to go window shopping on eBay to find more trap masters. And all it really did was make me wonder what the backstory of these Skylanders were. These were some of the most interesting character designs I've seen in this franchise, and I was hoping to read up on them in the games. Oh my god. Apparently, they just don't have any in-game bios for any of the new Skylanders. But hey, that's alright. I'll just go to the wiki and figure it out from there. And I was able to learn some fascinating information about some of these Skylanders. So without further ado, let's get started.
Rock and roll!
When it comes to the Trap Masters, I'm pretty sure Snapshot is the poster child of the group. Yes, it says that he's their leader, but nobody really knows that. He's the one who manages to pop up around the timeline the most out of the Trap Team's roster, and he's also the one that comes to mind first. And I'm pretty sure this guy's development is the reason for that. According to Trap Team's game designer, Nat Lowe, Snapshot was one of the most difficult Skylanders to design. Not only because they hadn't really figured out Trap Team's gimmick yet, but everyone working on the game also had a different interpretation on what a Trap Master was supposed to be. And because of that, Nat had to go through dozens of different designs for Snapshot in an attempt to make a design that worked for everyone. Not to mention the fact that making him work in the game was also a form of hell in and of itself due to how his bow worked. But thankfully for Snapshot, Nat was able to get him working before the game shipped out. But with that out the way, let's get into the lore. Snapshot comes from a long lineage of crocodigators that lived in the swamplands, where he would grow up and hunt chompies in the area for sport. And once he ran out of evildoers to hunt, he left his homeland to learn even more techniques so he can hunt even more challenging monsters. He would journey far and wide, perfecting his archery with the elves themselves and mastering his hunting skills with wolves. And soon, he would become one of the most renowned monster hunters in all of Skylands, a reputation that caught the attention of Master Eon. And after being recruited by the Portal Master, he would quickly become the leader of the Trap Team, where he would go on to hunt down the Doom Raiders along with the rest of the Trap Team. Let's pray to God that Snapshot doesn't get a terminal disease of some sort, and if he does, we're gonna have a big problem. The writers just decided that they were going to merge Kraven the Hunter and the Lizard together, so this could go wrong really quickly. And what makes this scary is that this almost happened. Snapshot, along with a few other members of the Trap Team, were trapped in Dark Traptanium by Chaos, which infused them with the darkness itself, and if they had that stuff stuck in their systems for too long, they could easily lose themselves to it. Thankfully, Spyro was able to teach him and the rest of the Trap Masters exposed to it how to contain it, because after this, he appears in Return of the Dragon King and ripped into overdrive in his normal blue color. But with that out the way, let's get into the next Skylander today.
Deal with it.
Now, when it comes to Skylanders and their designs, Tough Luck just makes me uncomfortable for some reason. I just don't like her design, and something feels wrong about it, and I can't really put my finger on it. But with that out the way, let's get into this. For as long as she knew, Tough Luck and her tribe guarded the Fortuna Springs, the source of luck for all of Skylands. Even though the springs were hidden in the random canyons that periodically moved around and made it almost impossible to find the entrance to the Fortuna Springs, Chaos's minions would somehow find their way towards it and flew sponge tankers in to drain every last drop. Luckily for the spring, Tough Luck was on guard and sprung into action when she realized what was happening, using her skills and good luck to drive out the minions single-handedly. After this event, she would drink from the pool, as it was customary for her tribe, and she would sense that she was needed elsewhere and had a greater calling. So she would leave her tribe and join the Skylanders. Now, after doing some mental racking, I think I figured out why Tough Luck just disturbs me so much. and I think it's her design. Now, I know that a good chunk of you are looking at me like I'm crazy, but to explain my point, here's some examples of other Skylanders on screen. Even though all of these characters have completely separate designs from each other, they all have a somewhat uniform cartoony look to them. But when you put Tough Luck in there, her design kinda just breaks it. She has somewhat normal proportions and she doesn't have the large cartoon eyes or look that most Skylanders have. It might be different in-game, but besides that, I don't really have a big problem with her. But there's just something about the live Trap Masters that concern me. But with that out the way, let's get to the final Skylander of today.
All geared up.
Now, when I saw Gearshift for the first time, I realized that she was going to be in this video, not only because she has a design that separates her from the rest of the Skylanders part of the tech element, but her weapon itself. Her Traptanium weapon has to be one of the most unique ones I've ever seen. But with that out the way, let's talk about her backstory. Gearshift was brought into creation on the tech island of Metalania by the ruler of the island itself, King Maricus, who would begin to see the robot as a daughter of sorts and raise her as his own. Instead of fulfilling her royal duties, she preferred to spend her time in the oily depths of the kingdom with the workers, secretly tending to the large subterranean machines without her father's knowledge. But when he did figure this out, he was furious. But before he could act on it, however, a group of undead storm riders would suddenly attack the city. And when Gearshift learned that they were after her father, she quickly took him out of the palace and into the labyrinths of the city below to hide him. Once she did, she would return to the castle and retrieve a weapon that was the emblem of her people, the Great Gear, and begin to fight the Storm Riders with it. Her actions inspiring the rest of her people to rise up against them and push the Storm Riders out of the kingdom. Because of her heroic action, she would become a member of the Trap Team, and because of this, she would switch out her gear for one made of Traptanium, which she would continue to use to this day. But don't think this is where her story ends. She would also be a major character in the Light and the Dark novels. So let's talk about them. While she was patrolling perilous pastures, she was jumped by an army of candy warriors led by Pinata, barely escaping and heavily damaged. She barely reached the academy, but luckily for her, Mags was able to repair her somewhat, and while she was being repaired, she explained what happened to her to Eon, Spotlight, and Blackout. After the group figured out that Pinata was behind the candy attack, Gearshift was eager to get it back in blood, even though she wasn't even repaired yet, but Eon decided to put her and the rest of the Trap Team, along with Rocky Roll for some reason, on a mission to fight an army of candy warriors, saving a group of Mabu during it before being forced to hold out in an abandoned castle. Seeing the army of candy warriors approaching them, she would rally everyone together to fight them off to the best of their abilities. And just as they were about to be overwhelmed, the candy army just fell apart. Even though she was confused out of her mind, she declared victory over the candy warriors to the others present. But with that over, I think that's where things are going to end for today. Like always, hit the subscribe button if you enjoy content like this, share this around so I can grow the channel, leave some comments down below to make the algorithm happy, and I will see you all in the next one.